The testimony today has been superb. My questions will be to reiterate points you've made. In fact, I just told my senior staffer for cybersecurity to get copies of everyone's testimony and provide it at the Cyber Subs meeting. The Cyber Subs Committee, I started this last year. Some of you may be aware of this, where we meet all the cyber subcommittees to try to get a whole of government approach here. We're going to send copies of your testimony to every cyber subcommittee member in this Congress. This was excellent. Thank you. Congress has a duty. Let me make this point. Congress has a duty that we have shirked over 40 years in both parties and passed off to the bureaucracy. The Constitution is really clear. A lot of these things that the administration is now closing, Chevron deference, and the Supreme Court have ruled it really belonged to Congress in the first place, and we never should have passed it off to the doggone administration and the bureaucracy, right? And so I get that there's some frustration that certain things are being closed, but I mean, constitutionally, we need to do that here. It's a part of our oversight obligation. It's a part of our particularly reporting and review boards and things like that. I was told yesterday, and I don't know if it's completely true, I got to fact check this, but the VA spends $1 billion on compliance. Does that seem reasonable? $1 billion on compliance? These conflicting rules and all this time, I think, Ms. Hogseth, you said 30% on actual just checking the box compliance and 70% on real cybersecurity. Was that the ratio you quoted?
30 to 50% of the Chief Information Security Officer's time is spent on that, and 70% of their teams. Ridiculous.
Let me ask this question. What is the average time to close a vulnerability when one's been identified? And give me a number of days and I'm going to run the average vulnerability. Closing the door takes how long? Take a guess.
You're going to hate this answer. It depends.
Great.
True. If it's a critical vulnerability, firms work to close that within days, if possible. It all depends on whether
More
you're
than
reliant.
4?
It would depend on how much control you have over it. If it's something that resides within a third party, you have less control and ability to move quickly to close it.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate, sir, on an average, but I will tell you that if you look at the recent attacks that are coming from nation states, it's taken weeks, months, and it's still a process that's underway.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure we've patched the telecom breach yet.
Yeah, so if we're talking about like browsers, they can close them in hours, but if you're talking about operational technology, it takes days.
Yeah, and SEC pulls the number 4 days out of their backside and thinks that they're doing shareholders a positive, but when they announce that they've got a hole in the door or in the wall and it's not going to be closed, it invites attack from everybody. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Let me ask this question. We've got to go and figure out all this list of duplicity, list of conflicting. How best do we as Congress, does this subcommittee and the subcommittees across our Congress figure out all the list of duplicative requirements and contradictory requirements? How do we go get this information?
So first of all, I appreciate what you said about the coordination across all the committees of jurisdiction. I think understanding, the first thing a cyber CISO or a CSO is going to do is inventory their entire system to understand where vulnerabilities might be. I'd say that Congress needs to inventory the system, understand where all of the regulatory requirements are so that we can start to do the hard work of harmonizing. And just to foot stomp something that you said about the lunacy of the SEC rule, adversaries, and to talk about the vulnerabilities and the time to patch, adversaries watch our response. And I understand, the importance of sunshine and transparency, but we also have to understand that intelligent adversaries are leveraging our transparency when perpetrating attacks and seeing how we respond.
Now, don't we list the identified vulnerabilities somewhere in a database that the bad guys can sit there and take a look at and then challenge and find where that vulnerability is anywhere in the system?
Those vulnerabilities become a little less important when everybody knows about them. So there is that.
There's always that legacy system that's still running the old thing that nobody catches, and it's an open door. That's what worries me there, Mr. Schwartz.
I was going to say, I mean, you shouldn't post, this is one of the reasons we say, we need a patch before you post a vulnerability.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
patch has to exist, but then people actually have to patch.
We just got to get everybody to download the patch. Thank you, I yield.